KFW Memphis and W253DF Memphis. Flynn Broadcasting Stations.
Oh, yeah.
It's time for Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here is your host, the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
For 47 minutes and 15 seconds, it looked like glory. It was the unexpected. It was almost like Rich Strike. No Ja. All momentum going to Golden State. In comes the villain, Dylan. And you don't think you have a chance. I mean, the odds makers in Vegas are saying 10 points, 10.5 points even. We're giving this to Golden State. They're going to take a 3-1 lead. There's no question about it. And the Grizzlies made them question that for 47 minutes and 15 seconds. And then some pretty ridiculous shot selection. Dylan Brooks with under a minute and a 1-point lead. Instead of working the ball, it's still early in the clock. All you got to do is go inside to Triple J or work the ball a little bit, and you play hero ball and you take a very, very ill-advised shot. And then I hate to say it, they're down 3, and I don't know why Triple J decided he was going to force the issue and took a bad 3. Bad shot selection. Free throws were big in this. And, of course, the Grizzlies end up losing. They lose by 3, but they really were down 6 because they played poorly, and Dylan Brooks hit a long shot at the buzzer that counted, but it really didn't matter. So what really occurred was in the last 2 minutes of the game, the Warriors went on an 11-2 run. It ends up being 11-5, but really consequential 11-2 run at the end that changed the whole course of the game because the Grizzlies could have, maybe should have won this game. I know most people point the finger at Dylan Brooks, and I understand that. You would think that a guy would get the notion that it's not my night offensively, but I can do other things. I'm not sure the Grizzlies would have been in the position they were in had Dylan Brooks not played the incredible perimeter defense that he was playing. But at some point, when you just can't hit anything, even in your drives, you got to say, let me get other people involved. He did have 8 assists. No one has pointed out the guy played great D, had 8 assists. Now, he turned the ball over 4 times, and 2 or 3 of those were totally unforced. He just threw the ball away when he kicked away. I suspect the crowd got to him a little bit. He would never admit that, but I would suspect that it did. But at some point, you have to say to yourself, I can really help this team in so many ways, and I'm hurting them by shooting so many times. 19 shots is probably too many. Like, try and think about 10, 12, especially when you're not hitting and you're a good setup guy. But I think more of the blame, if we're going to blame people in this thing, goes to the coach. The coach kept him in. The coach allowed him to keep shooting. The coach didn't put in, except for the 27 minutes that he played, the guy that helped them off to a great start, the guy who hadn't played in this series, Steven Adams. Steven Adams has such an advantage inside because that's where Golden State is weak.
You look at rebounds, he's getting tons of rebounds, but more so than that, just he facilitates their offense. The shots that they were getting when he was on the floor were astronomically better than when he was off the floor.
I am 100% with you, J-Mo. I don't understand the lack of minutes unless he's because of COVID protocol. They felt like he couldn't be in there. When they took him out, they were up in the rebound battle. They ended up losing the rebound battle in this game after they led for a lot of it because they took him out of the game. So they got out rebounded 54-48. They did win the points in the paint, 56-42. That was first time they've won the points in the paint in the whole series. It's because of Steven Adams. And I contend to you, had Steven Adams been in, I think this might have been a little bit different.
I totally agree, and I understand. You undoubtedly, Dylan Brooks took some bad shots. You talked about the one where there's a ton of time on the shot clock. He takes it at the top of the key. He took some bad shots, but I go back to Steven Adams. I think when he was out of the game last 7-8 minutes or whatever, those were the types of shots that Tyus Jones was taking, that Jaren was taking. They were bad shots by everybody every possession, and so like you said, if we have to criticize somebody, it might be Taylor Jenkins not having Steven Adams on the floor because of how much the offense struggled.
In my estimation, and I think he's a terrific coach. I know Monty Williams won Coach of the Year. I know there's some bum people out there that thought Taylor Jenkins should have won it, and you can make that argument. I get it. I think Monty Williams, they're the best record in the NBA. They're still alive in the playoffs. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't say it was Monty Williams who should get his due. But the thing that bugs me about Taylor Jenkins is his inability to communicate to us. This could be the philosophy of the franchise. They're the worst at any kind of information dissemination. They told us that he had an MRI, and yet they will not tell you what the results of the MRI are. Now, I don't know if that is the new HIPAA laws that they can't. But it would seem to me most of the teams in the league, when they get the information, they do say he's out because of this. And all they'll say is knee soreness, right? They're not going to specify exactly what is going on. And he was asked by a female reporter. I just watched it on Zoom, so I have no idea who it was. But this particular person asked, did you get the results of the MRI? Yes, we did. What do they say? I'm not going to tell you. And then last night, he asked a little bit about Dylan Brooks, and he goes, well, I trust in him. Okay. I would trust that you would say to the guy, we need you out there, but we need you to be more of a facilitator than a shot maker when you can't make shots on a given night. It's his decision to allow that kid to keep doing what he's doing. So if you want to really blame a guy, you can blame the player for missing the shots and keeping on taking them. But most of the time, players believe in themselves. They have to, or they wouldn't be out there. They have to believe in themselves. It's you who's got to say, Dylan, change your role, or I got to take you out.
I think you're onto something there, undoubtedly. But even so, I think, and maybe this could be wrong, but I think if you put Steven Adams out there for the last stretch of that game, after the last 6 minutes or so, even with Dylan Brooks missing all those shots, I still think they contend to win the game if they don't win it outright. I think even going 7 or 5 of 19 or whatever.
I just said the same thing, so I'm in total agreement with you there. I think he would have made a difference. I don't know if he was on a minutes restriction because of the COVID policies. I just don't know. We're not going to know that because they don't tell you. That's just the way their policy is. Much was made, although it was poo-pooed by Charles Barkley, that the Grizzlies were 20-5 without Ja. I would contend to you that, and I'm not saying they're a better team without Ja. I would hope Ja gets back, although that doesn't seem to be the case because they're not letting us know. But Triple J said, yeah, they heard about the MRI. It's sad. So I'm getting from him inadvertently that Ja probably is not going to play in Game 5, in Game 5. But you were 20-5 when you had all of the other cylinders working on your car. And one of those important cylinders is Desmond Bane. And at times, DeAnthony Melton. And in this series, Desmond Bane is clearly not the same guy that we saw in the Minnesota series. Desmond Bane doesn't have the lift in his legs to shoot like he was earlier in these playoffs. Short on a regular basis, doesn't have the confidence at this moment to try to even force anything. He's not taking very many shots. So, yeah, the Grizz were 20-5 without Ja when Desmond Bane became Ja. Or even DeAnthony Melton was significantly better than he's been in the entire postseason. I think D'Anthony Melton has had one game where he produced.
Game one, right?
It was never in the Minnesota series. I think it was game one. And that was a game that Memphis squandered. And that may end up being the real difference in this series, is that they lost that game with Draymond Green out. And unfortunately for the Grizz, so was Steven Adams because of COVID. And as has been pointed out by many people now, this is no big news. Golden State's weakness is they're small. When you've got the combination of Adams and Triple J down low, there's no one really, not even Green, as good a defensive player as he is, that can really stack up with them. And you didn't have Adams to begin with. So, and then you had game one where you really could have exploited it, and you didn't. And that's probably going to end up being the difference in the series. I still think Memphis comes back. I think they proved to themselves, even without Ja, they can beat this team. I think they'll beat Golden State in Game 5 tomorrow night, late night, 8:30 at FedEx Forum. Then they'll go back, and it'll be hard to win Game 6.
I think you saying Golden State's small is an excellent point that is not being talked about nearly enough. It's not like that's a new weakness that we're just discovering since they lost Andrew Bogut in 2016 when Tristan Thompson had like 20 rebounds a game in that playoff series in the finals. That's been their weakness. You have to be big against Golden State. And I do think maybe just getting a little bit too smart for your own good, maybe trying to match up too much with your opponent and not playing offensively enough in your scheme. I think it's just a little bit of an oversight by the coaching staff to not have Steven Adams out there in this series.
Well, the bottom line is Steven Adams couldn't play.
Well, in Game 1, absolutely.
He couldn't play in Game 1 or 2. He could not play in either of those games because of COVID. So that's just unfortunate. So the Grizzlies, they were without two key players for much of this time. Dillon Brooks, who took himself out of Game 1 and wasn't able to play in Game 2. Am I right about that? Was it Game 1 or 2 that he got?
I'm looking it up. I'm pretty sure it was Game 1 he hurt Gary Payton second, right?
Yeah, Payton was. Yeah, I think it was because Payton was the starter in that game just to put the D on Ja. So anyway, I don't know how they bounce back. They bounce back all season long. I suspect that they will. I think, maybe Bane gets a little bit healthier. I hope so. But you had all that long rest between games 2 and 3, and that didn't really help him out. And now these games are bunched together. I suspect Dillon Brooks will be better in the next game offensively. I can't imagine he would have 2 games in a row where he shoots this poorly.
It was Game 2. I'm sorry. It was game two.
So you really lost Brooks because that was early. It was in the first 3 minutes. So you lost him for Game 2. You lost him for Game 3. And that's right. And he came back last night for the first time, and he was a factor on one side of the floor, but he was a detriment on the other side of the floor, although he did have 8 assists, and we got to keep that in mind. I hope Steven Adams can play more than 27 minutes. I hope Taylor Jenkins will allow him to play more than 27 minutes. Is the series over? Man, if you listen, watch Twitter or listen, everybody is on Brooks. They're on Taylor Jenkins, and the series is over. I've just said to you, I think they're going to go back to San Francisco. Now, I don't think they'll win in San Francisco, but I do think they'll win Game 5 tomorrow night. I really, truly do. I don't know what you do with Dillon Brooks when this series and this year is over. Because this is the year you got to make a decision on him. And, he does bring a bunch to the table. People are really down on him at this very moment. But Dillon Brooks is a great defensive perimeter player. He is a decent distributor. He has no fear. I think he's a good teammate because his teammates all rally around him. And his weakness is he just shoots too much. If you can corral that, he's certainly got a place in this league. Somebody's going to sign him if it isn't Memphis. Would you, J-Mo, re-sign him?
That's a difficult question, I think. I think his skill set is tailor-made to be one of the best six men in the NBA. With the way he shoots shots and the way he guards, I think it's perfect for that role. Now, I think the problem is that Jaren Jackson Jr. also has the skill set, in my opinion, and people probably disagree with me on this, that of a sixth man. And you certainly can't have two of those guys starting on the court, and people are probably going to side with Jaren in that situation. So you really need... And this is another question, is Dylan willing to come off the bench on this particular Grizzlies team and play six-man? So you either need to get another piece to start, or maybe just a young guy to fill that role and play Dylan big minutes off the bench. You know, I don't think you go wrong if you sign him, but I also don't think it's detrimental if you don't. Maybe that's not a good question. That's not a good answer, I don't think.
Some of it will depend on the deal that you get him for, too.
That's right.
I mean, how much money does he think he can get somewhere else if that is the case? My thing, I agree with your premise about Brooks being a terrific sixth man. I don't think on a really, really, really good team, although this is the second best team in the NBA by record, that he's the starter. I think he is better suited, particularly the way he plays offense, to be a sixth man and to play minutes at the end of the game when you need defense or a guy that will drive to the hole. He's not a bad free throw shooter either. So there's definitely a place for him. I am 180 in your opinion on Triple J. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a starter. I think in today's NBA, because he can hit threes, although we haven't seen it as much as you would like, but there was a period of time in the regular season he was fairly consistent with his three-point shooting. I'd like to see more of him driving in. I said this last year, I'd like to see him develop a little bit better of a mid-range game where he goes into the lane, stops, goes up. Who's going to block that shot? Nobody, if he has a mid-range game. I don't mind him going to the hole either. He can usually hit free throws. I think he is a starter, and I think he is a really good player on any NBA team. But I think he'll get better. Because he's going to get bigger and stronger and more confident. We've seen the improvement. I mean, there were many people that were pushing for him to be the defensive player of the year, and he's obviously a great shot blocker. But I think you could have made a case for him to be one of the more improved players this year. You had three guys on this team that could have been the most improved player, and that's Jaren Jackson Jr., that's Bane, and there's the guy that won it, John Morant.
You're absolutely right. I might be being too critical of Jaren, I think, because you absolutely said it. If I did not expect Jaren to have this much improvement from last year to this year. It's been a huge leap. Who's to say you won't make another leap like that next year, too? So, and if that does happen, too, then maybe you're even more comfortable re-signing Dylan Brooks, you know, maybe as a starter, but maybe even more if he's willing to come off the bench in a six-man role. And if you give him money, what's the difference anyway?
I just don't know, what kind of money, because you're going to have money, I think, to sign Bane. I mean, and I'd spend some money on signing Tyus Jones as a backup if you can get him to do that. And if you've got an owner that's willing to go into the tax because he's now the third richest owner in the NBA, he just got a heck of a new deal from the city on the lease. Everything's going his way. Maybe he will spend, and maybe he'll try to do that. We'll see. That's going to be a big question. How much money you pay Tyus Jones, and do you re-sign Brooks? And can Brooks accept a role that you're talking about? Maybe he can be a starter, but he's got to learn. Here's a great thing. I don't think players, for the most part, if you're at this level and you've gotten this far, I don't think players accept mentally, and I'm not sure they can. I don't think they accept their limitations. I think Draymond Green is an example of a guy who knows I'm not a great offensive player. I'll pick and choose my spots, but I know the game better than anybody else. I will screen like crazy, get in the way to help my guys. I will defend like crazy. I'll rebound like crazy. I will mentally get in the head of people. I don't have to be a great offensive player. I think he accepts that limitation. There's not many guys that do. Dylan Brooks is not one because he missed so many shots by such a margin that to take that hero shot under a minute to go and you're up by one was just a silly thing to do. And so he's got to grow in that area, but I don't know that he can.
I think you're dead on in talking about the thought process of a player. This is the way he's played since the first time, at least I saw him play at Oregon, that has led him to immense success and riches and fame and have a great NBA career. It's hard to accept any limitations. Another example, Carmelo Anthony, who was one of the best players in the world for a period of time, literally had to take a season off in order to allow himself to accept a role off the bench. He wasn't willing to play a role at all because he had always been the best player. So I think you're dead on with that, the psyche of a player there.
All right. We've got a busy show coming your way today. Tim Doolin on baseball coming up, and then we'll get more into this and the Golden State Warriors and the Grizzlies with Evan Barnes, who's in San Francisco writing for the Commercial Appeal. He kind of takes the San Francisco, the Golden State side of all this. We'll get his take on all of it. Can the Grizzlies get back in this series at all? Also, he interviewed James Wiseman, and we'll see what's going on with that because Wiseman apparently told him and some other folks that he was never even interviewed by the IARP. How accurate or fair can that board be if they're not even interviewing the participants in what went down? Interesting. We'll get that take from Evan Barnes. So that is the show. I'm sitting in the Family Leisure Studios where it's the vacation at home sale. We love enjoying time now at home with our families. That's the new thing. And they know it at Family Leisure. And they can tell by their sales, too. Their sales, best year they ever had was a year ago. And then when it's sort of past that good stuff over to you, like play gyms and trampolines. You can get $500 off right now. Hot tubs in stock and ready to go, up to $1,000 off if you pick it up yourself. And if you're really handy and you know pools, let's call yourself the do-it-yourself pool specialist. You can save up to $1,500 on every in-stock pool if you pick up the pool and install it yourself. What a deal at I-40 and Whidden Road. That's Family Leisure. You know, our title sponsor, it's Homer Skelton Hyundai in Olive Branch. That is where they give you this for sure. You'll never pay more than sticker price on any new Homer Skelton Hyundai. Other dealerships in this day and age with the shortages of the chips and the shortages of new cars and the escalation because of that of used cars, they're taking advantage of the law of supply and demand. Chris True and all that group that's been together 20 years, they don't think of it that way. They think about you as customers that are part of their family, been around for a long time. We're going to help take care of you, too. You never pay more than sticker price at Homer Skelton Hyundai. We talk baseball with Tim Doolin. Tonight's a big night. I think our Greg Gaston's going to be on the call. It is the end of an 18-year era for Memphis baseball. Darren Schoenrock's last home game is tonight, and we'll talk with our baseball expert, both Major League and, of course, college. That's Tim Doolin. He comes your way in just a minute.
Let former Memphis Tiger Gabe Kuhn and Brett Norsworthy take you home every afternoon with Sports Time on Sports 56. Weekdays from 3 to 6 here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
The one thing downtown Memphis has been missing for a while is a really great bar. That's because Bell Tavern has been closed, but it's reopening soon, and the timing is perfect. People are going out again, and they want a truly great bar to go to, and Bell Tavern, with the coldest beer in town, is tucked away in Barbaro Alley between 2nd and Main. But the easiest way to find it is to walk right through the dining room at 117 Prime on Union. Bell Tavern is the perfect place to start your evening or keep the fun going later. Finally, the downtown bar everyone deserves.
Hey, Dad? Cool if I change this?
They may not get each other's music, but they can both get a COVID-19 booster shot. Because the CDC recommends booster shots for people 12 years and older after completion of a primary series. Schedule an appointment as soon as you are eligible. Sponsored by BioNTech and Pfizer.
We're starting the holiday early at Gossett Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat on the Pike with our big-time Memorial Day sales event. Great things come in threes, so take your pick from 2022 Dodge Charger or 2022 Jeep Cherokee Latitude or 2022 Chrysler 300 Touring. We Gossett $469 a month. And get workhorse ready in 2022 Ram 1500 Tradesman, $489 a month or $35,860. 2022 Dodge Charger, 2022 Jeep Cherokee Latitude, 2022 Chrysler 300 Touring, $469 a month. 2022 Ram 1500 Tradesman, $489 a month. Plus, trade up and get more for your ride at Gossett Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat. Drive past the rest and come to the best or shop online, GossettMotorCars.net.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
Charger Cherokee 1575 at 4.11, 3,500 down, must finance through Chrysler, 372 months at 2.9, 1,500, NS 148, 243, MSRP 39,110, Charger NH 138807, MSRP 35,485, Cherokee ND 512,209, MSRP 35,735, 300, NH 11192, MSRP 37,135. Includes all rebates and incentives, excludes tax title and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 5/31/22, dealer stock only.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
We're going to talk baseball with Tim Doolin in just a second. He's brought to you by Ken Garland. If you're thinking about building a home, maybe a renovation you want done the right way, I call that renovation with innovation. He brings all the modern amenities into your old home. You don't want to leave your lot. You love your location. It feels so comfy. We get that. So does Ken. That's why he brings the California closets, the big island in the kitchen, the granite tops, everything you need, the speakers in the wall, the movie rooms, media rooms, maybe that's a better way to put it. All that. Ken knows. He understands every bit of that. If you go to KenGarland.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. We're talking about almost 60 years now, 2 generations of Ken Garland custom home builders. Besides those renovations, maybe you're looking for land to build that dream home. Well, he's got land. Maybe you've got land you're not sure how to utilize. He knows exactly what to do, and he works closely with his clients because he understands the financial commitment you're making, which means he commits to you that you'll get what you should expect, quality construction on time, on budget. Ken Garland, Custom Home Builders. Go to the website, kengarland.com, then call that number, 751-1632. You'll love chatting with him, I promise. Ken Garland, Custom Home Builders. So the end of an era tonight. Well, they'll go to the conference, the American Athletic Conference championships. But Tim Doolin, tonight's the last home game for Darren Schoenrock. An 18-year journey on the South Campus of the University of Memphis. That's a long time for any coach to last.
It really is, and I can't remember how many years Coach Kilpatrick, my coach, was there, but I think he exceeded that by a few years. But
yeah, he might have been 20.
You know,
That's probably true.
Yeah, you know, Rock's a quality guy, a quality individual. Has done a lot for the university, and I think he's, was challenged with the lack of facilities and the lack of support from the some of the former administrations that would have given him a much better chance to have been more successful on the field. But when you look at his graduation rate and the players that he impacted over the last 18 years. Kudos to Rock and the time and commitment that all coaches put in. I mean, people don't realize when you really look at how many hours they're putting in the day versus what they're compensated, it really doesn't add up, and it's not fair. But he's been there a long time, and just congratulate him on a long career here.
It was cool. I don't know. I guess it was Sunday when East Carolina was in town, and because I believe they're playing Arkansas State this final home game. But a bunch of the former players were there. I mean, you're talking about guys who are now 17, 16 years older. So, they're in their late 30s. And that's a nice scene to see guys come back because I would say that Rock had some good years on the field, but most of the time, as you mentioned, all the years were good off the field for him. He was a good PR guy, and he cared about his guys, and I think for the most part, they all became pretty good human beings.
Well, to me, I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and anybody that gets into coaching, for me, it's about impacting lives. It's not all about wins and losses, and having players that you coach come back and at least tell you how you impacted them, whether they become doctors, lawyers, whatever. I think that's the beauty of team sports and the beauty of having guys that genuinely care about you as a person, more so than just how you help them win or lose games. And so, I talked to Mookie a lot about that, and some of the best managers you ever play for. That's ultimately how you gauge successful coaches and managers, and it's all about how they impacted you as a player.
Let's slide to Major League Baseball since you bring up Mookie. This strikes me. Do you realize the 4 best records in baseball, in Major League Baseball right now? In the National League, it belongs to the New York Mets, who are 20-10, and the L.A. Dodgers, who are 19-8. When you look at the American League, the Yankees have the best percentage. They're 20-8 in all of baseball, and the Angels are 20-11. New York, Los Angeles, the top 4 teams in the bigs, the top 2 teams in each league. Are we stuck in? It's all got to be major markets. Is that where baseball is at this moment?
Well, it at this moment it is, and I don't know that it's going to stay that way. We got a long season ahead of us, but I think what we're seeing is that other than the Angels, probably on paper, and you look at the salaries that those clubs are paying, they're getting some return on their investment right now, and so that equates to big market, big money, and television money, and all those things that allow you to go pay superstars to perform on the field. And the Yankees have struggled over the last several years, and they've had the same payroll and had a lot of the same players. I think it's something we can gauge, but I don't think we could probably lend more toward the argument of big market, big results by the All-Star break. But there's no question there's some correlation to it right now, for sure.
Well, and if you look in the AL Central, the Twins, I don't think Minneapolis-St. Paul is considered a major market. It's not a small market. Houston is second in the American League West. Well, that's a major market. I think, what is that, 5 maybe or 4 even now behind Chicago in the National League. When you're looking, Milwaukee is a small market, and it leads the National League Central. So, San Diego's in second behind the West. But to me, I kind of lump Los Angeles and San Diego together. Maybe I'm wrong in doing that. But I do think there seems to be, Tampa is the one outlier in all this. But it sure seems to me that the major markets have an advantage in Major League Baseball. It's just the way it is.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, look, the success the Dodgers have had over the years, but especially in recent history. And they've been able to not only spend money, but I think spend money wisely. And then you look at what they did this past offseason and adding the MVP of the league from the contending World Series champions. It's like, how in the world did they do that? But they did that and really didn't overspend on getting him. And so, to me, that was like just a very good strategic move on the front office of the Dodgers. So anyway, I think it's a combination of you have money to spend, but you got to spend it wisely, because the Yankees have spent a lot of money over the last several years and hadn't gotten there.
Man, it's looking more and more like this could be the year. Of course, it's still very early. We've had some rule changes, and they're toying with the clock, and the clock seems to work in minor league baseball. I'm starting to lean toward a pitch clock to get things going in Major League Baseball and to get the time down a little bit. Well, one of the other things, and I didn't realize this till I saw the Madison Bumgarner showdown with a umpire. When the Diamondback was leaving the mound, he didn't like a couple calls, was giving crap to the home plate umpire. He's walking, and the first base umpire checks his hands. So in the old days, they used to check your glove and your hat and your waistband and that kind of stuff. Now the umpire just comes over, and between innings, when the pitcher is leaving, he just checks your hand. And I don't think I realized that until I saw this thing with Baumgartner, and then the umpire baits Baumgartner into basically using the F word and P word and everything else and a lot of anger, and throws him out. To me, it was totally intimidation by the umpire. I thought he was in the wrong here. But this thing with checking the hands is pretty interesting.
Well, I think what they've done, I think it started about 2 years ago, is between every inning the pitcher walks off the mound and one of the umpires runs over, checks his hand, can check his hat, can check his belt to make sure there's no foreign substance. But it's almost cosmetic. And in this case, you've got an umpire that's not a veteran umpire, and you're dealing with definitely a potential Hall of Fame pitcher that is a veteran, and you're trying to intimidate that guy and showing Baumgartner no respect. Which if people see the video clip, you can tell the umpire is staring him right in his eyes, and Baumgartner's looking at his hand like, let's get this over with.
Well, and he keeps holding his hand too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he held his hand like, I'm gonna hold your hand so you look at me and acknowledge that I'm the boss. And so Baumgartner didn't stand for it. And to me, you suspend players for doing things that are wrong. You should suspend umpires if they do things that are wrong, and that guy should have been suspended.
If they do suspend him, I don't think Major League announces it. I mean, he could be suspended, right?
Well, I'm not sure about that, Wolo, but I do think this umpire was kind of what they call a 4A substitute type umpire. He's not full-time. Maybe he is, but I don't think he was. So he's not a guy that's on the circuit of the Major League guys all the time, because sometimes the big league umpires get so many days off, and when they do, they bring up umpires.
They get a lot of
just
time.
Like teams do.
They get a lot of time off these days. So they bring them up from AAA. Yeah. So there are some guys that are working both AAA and Major League Baseball. That's the transition that you make before you become a full-time guy.
This guy hurt his chances to get called back up. I would think. But
I am amazed if that is the case, because I know they came out and they said his name was Dan. I've never, in all the things on Twitter and everything else that I've seen the video, they never identify his last name. They just say his name is Dan. But I'm amazed that a guy, if he is one of the in-between guys, that he would have the chutzpah to do that to a star like Madison Bumgarner.
That's my point. That's my point. Is the sign of a good umpire is that we never talk about him, right? It's not, the game's not about the umpires. The game is about the players, and so we talk about Angel Hernandez because he's always controversial and he wants it to be all about him. We're talking about this guy. At the end of the day, it's not about the umpires, and Joe West was somewhat like that. Granted, he was an established umpire and umped for a long time, Ken Kaiser, but those guys became more arrogant over the years. And to me, if an umpire is really good, he communicates with players. And I tell our coaches this all the time: if you go out, my advice to an umpire would be, is if a coach approaches you about a call, you're never going to change the call, right? If you missed it, you missed it. But if the umpire says, you know what, Wolo, this is how I saw it, I might have missed it. Well, then there's no argument. Right. What are you going to do? What can you say? You just turn around and walk off. And that shows respect to the coach to say, that's how I saw the call, instead of continuing arguing, because no one wins the argument.
Right. Well, it seems to me some of the arguments have gone down because we have replay. And
right.
So that's tempered
true.
things.
That's right.
But in this particular case,
in the same regard, part of me going to watch a game is to see Earl Weaver in action with umpires. I think that's a huge part of it. And so I'm not opposed to having confrontations and arguments between managers and umpires because it's part of the show. It's like hockey. Why do you go watch a hockey game? Because you want to see some fights.
Not everybody does. I want to see good play. Anyway, I
want to see good play too. But it's interesting, when they start getting after it. It's entertaining.
No doubt. Earl Weaver was the best at that. No question about it. Tim, thank you much. We'll do this again next week. We appreciate you.
All right.
Tim
all right,
Doolin.
Wolo, thanks.
On baseball, he's brought to you by the good folks at Conway. Conway Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electric. So many reasons why I like them. If you need plumbing, they're there. You want service, they are there. You need an electrician, they are there. 384-3511, and, of course, the tune-up. And we're getting close to where I think most people are starting to get the tune-up. It's starting to get warm. 90 degrees today. Is your system working right? Have you got enough Freon? That's a check they have when they're doing your air conditioning tune-up for the summer. $16.9, 384-3511. They come in, they check the Freon. They're going to do a 16-point tune-up inside, outside. They clean up all the leaves, the grime, the grease from all the years that you haven't really paid attention to that outside unit. They clean it up, and all of a sudden your system is efficient. Your house is cool at a cheaper rate on your MLGW bill, and you know what else it does? It makes your system last longer. These tune-ups are really important. 384-3511, Conway Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. Two quick stories. We'll take the break. We're going to come back, and Evan Barnes is going to join us from San Francisco. Tom Brady going to be the lead analyst when he retires from the Buccaneers for Fox. He's going to work with Kevin Burkhardt. So he's going to go from the field, like Tony Romo, to the lead analyst role. They're also going to use him sort of as an ambassador to help their sales. Pretty smart move. Will he be as good as Tony Romo, J-Mo?
No. I don't know. Honestly, it only took 1 month of Tom Brady being retired, home with his family and his wife, for him to be like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going home again.
Good point. I don't know. I think I could handle being around Giselle a little bit longer than a month. Who knows? And we're going to talk about this in the next week or two. There is, the college football people are meeting, and they're going to be voting on certain rules. There is a chance that the each year's signing class, which is limited to 25, right? You can have 85 scholarship players, but you can never have more than 25 per year. Because of the transfer portal, there's a waiver now that you can have a bigger class size than 25. You can't exceed 85. They're thinking about taking that waiver away as long as the transfer portal is there, and you can have as big a class as you want. That'll be interesting to watch. Also, they're going to remove requirements. I think this is a done deal for football conference championships at the FBS level, which is basically they're going to eliminate divisions and make it a little easier for you to devise your own way to pick your champion that may go into the college football playoff. So we'll examine that a little bit closer as the weeks go on. We take a quick time out. To San Francisco we go. Evan Barnes from the Commercial Appeal. We'll talk Grizz and Warriors. He's covering it there at the moment, and we speak with him in a minute.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Barden Stone has been serving the Mid-South area for over 3 generations. What sets them apart and makes them a unique landscape stone center? They have one of the largest selections with a wide variety of colors and sizes, all the way from cobblestones to garden rock and pebbles from ground cover, plus fieldstone and flagstone, stepping stones and stacking stones, even landscape boulders. In addition to a wide variety of stones and rocks, Barden Stone staff is very knowledgeable. Whether you're a homeowner, contractor, or design professional, Barden Stone can answer any question pertaining to the use of stones from A to Z. Barden Stone, they know stone inside and out. Barden Stone, 1 mile south of Park at 1557 Cherry Road. Barden Stone, open for you Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Call 901-683-8264 and visit Barden Stone.
Hi, everybody. Greg Gaston for FanDuel. Add a little excitement to your sports watching experience by betting on all the action on FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Their app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlays, and exclusive always-on promotions such as enhanced odds boosts on the biggest events that let you get more action out of every game day. And if you win, they even get you your winnings safely in as little as 24 hours. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started, and be sure to sign up with promo code GASMAN so they know I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code GASMAN. Must be 21 or over and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires 14 days after receipt. Restrictions do apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you have a gambling problem, call Tennessee Redline at 1-800-889-9789.
Swerving, speeding, and reckless driving can leave you in your own dust. Drag racing has its consequences. You can lose your driving privileges, your vehicle, face jail time, or even lose or take a life. So slow down, Memphis. The life you save may be your own. Brought to you by the Memphis Police Department, Traffic Operations.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
We have dissected the 3-point loss the Grizzlies had at Golden State last night. We've talked about the coach and not having Adams in at the end of the game, the Brooks too many shots, the missed free throws by Kyle Anderson. One thing, and we should point this out, there was a great performance by a great player, and we did not give Steph Curry his due for his greatness. He had 18 of his points in the final quarter, covering sort of that side for the Commercial Appeal. The wonderful beat writer for the Commercial is Evan Barnes. He's still in San Francisco, delayed by a flight, which was to our benefit. We can get him on. Give us your perspective. I know Draymond Green didn't talk, but certainly Steph Curry did. Give me your thoughts on last night.
Well, I thought it was kind of one of those weird Steph Curry great performances where you look up and you're like, well, he didn't have one of those like explosions, but you look around and he had an 18-point fourth quarter. He scored 32 points. I mean, he basically carried the Warriors to the finish line when the Grizzlies were just trying to slow it down and make it a fight almost, like a knockdown fight. So you give Steph Curry a lot of credit for just, making free throws, making shots, and then just better execution down the stretch by the Warriors.
Well, it was a weird story, too. At the last second, Steve Kerr's not coaching. Here's Mike Brown, who's just been announced as the new head coach at Sacramento. And, all of a sudden, he's the head coach of this team. Although I've heard a lot of people that were sitting behind in Memphis, the Golden State bench, that Mike Brown does a lot of coaching.
Well, yeah, I believe from what I've read up here that he does manage the minutes, and he's very, involved with some of the gameplay in terms of that and strategy. And look, Mike Brown's been a NBA head coach. He's been to the, he's been to the playoffs. He's had teams that were great in the regular season. So you have someone like him. He knows what he's doing, and he's been, I think, entering the game. He was 11-0 when he's been the interim head coach. So,
now 12-0.
You look at he knows what he's doing, and that's why he's going to be the coach of Sacramento. He's someone who's proven, he's done well, and the Warriors found a way to win. But I thought he did a pretty good job managing everything.
Did the Warriors find a way to win? Curry and they made their free throws and that thing, or did the Grizzlies give this one away from your perspective? The shot selection at the end, the Brooks staying in the game and shooting even though he couldn't hit anything, and the coach allowing that.
I think it was more the Warriors kind of just pulled ahead at the stretch where better execution comes from experience. Look, you're dealing with a team that's been in so many playoff situations, so many series, that they know what they're doing. And I think the Grizzlies tried to play the strategy of, we're going to try to slow it down, pray that the shots fall. And yeah, obviously, Dillon Brooks' shooting night was not great. Taylor Jenkins' decisions were not great. I thought the main decision that probably something that I think about this morning was the Grizzlies should have probably called timeout after Steph hit those free throws, put them up three, set up a play in the half court, not rush a shot that Jaren took. That was a play that stood out, but obviously there were a lot of these you can point back to. But this one was the Warriors survived, and that's kind of what I wrote about, that they survived because they know how to do this, and the Grizzlies are still learning how to do this.
And I was a bit surprised because the Grizzlies were so effective with the big man, Steven Adams, in. I didn't really hear any question of Jenkins about not having him out there at the end when he had been such an asset. Was he on a minutes restriction because of COVID? What's your take on Steven Adams?
I don't know. And I think, to me, as somebody who has been very understanding and supportive of Steven Adams not playing late in games, I thought this was a game you probably needed to play in just because the way the Warriors were shooting, you need him out there to get those rebounds because they were doing a great job boxing out. So I don't know if it was COVID. I don't know if that's why, Adams only played garbage time. But we've seen players, again, and not knowing what his situation was, we've seen players come back from protocols, play a decent load of minutes because obviously, you want to ease them back in. And we know that COVID obviously affects the, respiratory system. Now, again, we don't know if Steven Adams had it or not. But again, it looks very suspicious where Steven Adams was fit enough to play in garbage time, but then all of a sudden he plays more minutes in Game 4 and has a great impact. So we didn't really get a full understanding of that, and I think that's something that, like you said, is going to be a decision that Taylor Jenkins has to answer for.
We go to Game 5 tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen here in Memphis?
Well, it's all going to depend on the injury report tonight. If John Morant is on there as doubtful or out, which I fully expect him to be one of those two, then the Grizzlies are going to be in a really tough spot, and I think the series ends in Memphis. I think the Grizzlies will fight. They'll be energized playing back home. I do not think this Warriors team is going to be I expect to see them more like a Game 4 situation than Game 3. I think they're going to be, Steph hasn't shot the ball well this series. Klay Thompson has just been absolutely dreadful outside of Game 3. So I think the Grizzlies have a chance. But if John Morant does not play and if Desmond Bane's back is continuing to give him trouble, then right now I don't see a way for the Grizzlies to win Game 5, even if they come out and play as inspired as they can with that home crowd.
I think the Bane aspect is really important. When we look at that 20-5 record with Morant not in the lineup, some of that has to do with the fact that Bane became kind of like Ja. He scored a lot of points. He was really excellent, just like he was in the Minnesota series. He is not close to 100%. Can you tell that looking at him there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he, as DeMichael Cole noted at halftime, he took a picture of Desmond Bane having the heating pad on his back. He clearly at times wasn't moving well. You could tell defensively he didn't have the lateral quickness. And as a shooter, if your back is hurting, those legs are going to feel it. So you could tell something, he's not 100% because he was obviously lights out during the first series, but he hasn't been right this series. And you can tell. And that's why I'm not as harsh on Bane, because clearly with a back injury, I know how it feels when you wake up with a bad back. If your back's not right, your legs aren't right, everything is off as a shooter with your mechanics. So that's pretty much what's going on with him. So the Grizzlies are going to have to basically rely on somebody besides Jaren Jackson maybe to have a really good game, from the perimeter. And as crazy as it sounds, as bad as Dylan Brooks plays, if he plays well in Game 5, the Grizzlies will take it because he kind of is that guy. But right now he's been struggling all series.
Well, here's the thing about him. He did have 8 assists last night, and he did play marvelous defense for the most part. He disrupts what Golden State tries to do. And I think that's evident from Game 3 to Game 4. You can see that. The problem is he just needs to limit himself, understand his limitation, and not shoot as much. Last thing, well, I do want to get – this will be the last thing. It's the James Wiseman situation. You, I think, were the only one that really interviewed him. He hasn't even been interviewed by the AARP. Tell me about what you think is going on with James Wiseman, his career, and what he was saying about the U of M.
Yeah, basically, we asked if we could speak to James Wiseman while we were there, and the Warriors were very good enough to let us speak to him. And obviously, the good news for him is that, Wiseman's knee injury is moving along well. So that's a plus. But as far as what he said about the university, he said that he has not been interviewed, which is quite fascinating, that he has not been talked to since this whole situation started from obviously what happened with the money that Penny gave his mom. So that was fascinating. But also, obviously there's not a lot. There's still love there. Wiseman said that he believes Penny will keep the program afloat. He'll do his best. And there seems to me just, it's fascinating that he didn't have much to say about that. But honestly, if you're James, you probably don't want to say too much anyway. Right. It's probably in your rear view. But it was interesting that he has not been interviewed. I don't know if that's going to happen, to come or what. But it's interesting that in the 2+ years of this process, he said he hasn't been interviewed. I find that to be very, very strange.
I wonder if he just said, I won't talk. I mean, he didn't say why he wasn't interviewed, right? I guess you can turn down an interview if you're an individual citizen. That, to me, I would have asked, did they ask you? Did they try to interview you? And I haven't seen the answer to that. Do you know that?
That I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Does his mom live in Memphis still?
I don't know. I mean, Steve Kerr basically said he was able to get a home-cooked meal in Memphis, and Wiseman said he got some nice spaghetti from his mom. So I'm not sure if there's, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but he said he got a home-cooked meal, so I'm sure he enjoyed some, nice amenities being back in Memphis this series. But, again, that part I'm not 100% sure on.
I know you're headed back home for some good home-cooked meals. I hope, though, you get to go back to San Francisco after tomorrow night's game. And I think you're going to. How's that? I'm on the record. I'm saying this is gonna go back to Frisco for Game 6.
Well, you have a lot of confidence, Wolo, and that's why I love you. You are a very optimistic, confident man, and I respect you for that. But if you're a Grizzlies fan, obviously I would just say these next 2 days are the most important days. You just hope the Grizzlies can hang in, get healthy, and then let the chips fall where they may on Wednesday. Be loud, be proud, and whatever happens, this season has been incredible. And I hope people can understand that when this is all said and done, the ending may suck, but the season has been by far probably the best regular season, one of the best seasons in franchise history. You take it and see how they can build on it either way.
Oh, no doubt. And this is like 3 years ahead of schedule, so no one can possibly complain. Thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. We'll get you on again soon, either to talk Grizz or to talk a little Tiger football. We never got you on for the spring game. I'd love your thoughts on that. Safe travels home, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Wolo. Take care.
Thank you. That's Evan Barnes from the Commercial Appeal. He is brought to you by Memphis City Golf. I love the golf courses. You know that. I love how the city of Memphis is recognized. Golf's an amenity. That's what makes a great city. And we got great golf courses. They're trying to make them even better. Overton is going to be open at probably in July. One more month. I went by it the other day. That group that put together these renovations from the folks that did the Cove in Chattanooga, it's just going to be gorgeous. And it's starting to really come in. The greens look fantastic already. Pine Hill completely renovated. It'll open, I want to say, the end of fall, maybe, something like that. They're hoping to get that thing open. There's plans for Audubon. They're redoing the greens at Fox Meadows. That'll take place in the next couple of weeks. Folks, Memphis golf has never been better. If you haven't been to a city golf course in a while, go check it out. You'll love what you see. We thank Tim Doolin and Evan Barnes. Johnny Radio is next. We'll see you tomorrow.